Your business architecture is going to make or break your business. Welcome to Freedom Entrepreneurship, where we are answering one question. How can we have both growth and freedom? Or if you're lacking at freedom at the moment, how can we regain freedom as an entrepreneur? My name is Stephan Poschik. Let's get started. Today we want to continue to talk about one of the major pillars from Freedom Entrepreneurship, which is all around business architecture. And today I really want to deep dive with you into the organizational structure. So how should your business look like from the inside? How does your business or how does your business need to look like from the inside? That you set yourself up for freedom, but you also set up your business for success, for growth, and for scaling. So let's talk about it. We have something that is called an org chart when we build our company. So what is the org chart? The org chart are the different departments in your company. The org chart should also reflect what areas of execution you have in your business. And an org chart should also give your employees and your team members the clarity. Where are they? In what department, in what area, in what responsibility? Who is their direct manager? Who is their boss? How is it structured? So that's basically an org chart simplified. Here comes the big question. Do you have an org chart? Question number one. Most business owners, especially small business owners, do not have an org chart, which is an issue because then you already lack the structure. I speak about building a skyscraper a lot when I talk about the business architecture. Do you think somebody is going to build a skyscraper without a plan from an architect? No, right? Nobody would do that. So why do you want to build your business without having a plan? Nobody should do that. Okay, so step number one, do you have an org chart? No, then better get something together. Even if it's the simplest org chart you can imagine. And now, question number two is, how does your org chart look like? Is your org chart extremely complicated, extremely complex, that nobody can really wrap his head around it? Nobody can really figure out, oh my God, how are these things connected? How are these areas connected? How are these areas working together? So then, same again, not ideal, because simplification and easy things, this is what is going to help grow your business, and this is what is scalable. And this is also what you can delegate so much easier compared to when everything is extremely complicated. So what areas do we need in our organization? We have actually two things we need to look at. We have the customer side, so basically the external side, and then we have the internal side. And the external side, there are just three areas, not more, just three. It's marketing, it's sales, and it's execution. Marketing is how I get leads, how I nurture them. Sales is how I convert them in paying customers. And execution is how do I deliver my product or my service. Not more complicated than that. Not more information necessary, not more areas necessary. That's the external side. And now let's talk about the internal side. Internally, what is it? Operations. Okay, that's operations. Operations is probably project management behind the scenes, accounting. Operations is internal stuff, your office manager, HR, leadership topics, internal training and development programs. That's all in the areas of operations. So now let's talk a little bit more about these areas. Remember, not more than these areas. So externally, we just have these three areas, and internally, one that's called operations. That's enough for a small business. You do not need to have dozens of different departments. You do not need to have a huge amount of different areas, a huge amount of different sections, a huge amount of different whatever, if you just have one person in every single area, in every single segment. No, it just makes your org chart so much more complicated. It just gets confusing if people don't know, okay, I'm an own department. Oh, wow, great. I'm a one-man show in my department. I don't have a boss. I don't have employees. I don't have team members. I do not have somebody to work together with. No, don't make it more complicated than it's necessary. Okay? So let's talk about these three different areas, externally and then operations internally. And then I'm going to go into how can you start to optimize these, what are the most important things that you really make them more efficient and that you get yourself out of these different areas so you can accomplish more freedom at the end of the day. The first thing is everything starts with marketing, of course. And marketing is just something where you have so many different opportunities in the meantime. But at the end of the day, what needs to happen in marketing? Lead generation. Where do you find leads? How do you get leads? How do you generate leads? The next thing is lead nurturing. Basically, how do you build trust with somebody? How do you build enough reputation that somebody trusts you enough that at some point in the future somebody is willing to buy from you? And the next thing is lead qualifying. How do you qualify the lead that you don't waste time when you basically move them into the sales area, into the sales process? Because you can waste huge amounts of time if you are talking to unqualified leads who are not able to buy your stuff or are probably not even the right targeted customer you are talking to. Okay? So marketing, three areas: lead generation, lead nurturing, lead qualifying. Good. Second step is, what comes next? Sales, of course. Sales is how can you take a qualified lead and how can you close the deal? That's the main purpose of sales. And as soon as somebody is closed, now what's the next one? Customer delivery? Yeah, okay. Execution, that needs to go on anyway. But from a sales perspective, the next thing is upsell, cross-sell, resell, maybe downsell. Okay? So again, sales, most important thing is they convert the qualified leads into paying customers. And immediately after that happened, sales should start with upsell, cross-sell, resell, maybe downsell opportunities. I'm going to cover that in a second in a separate show in the future. But in the meantime, you find a lot also in past shows where I'm talking about these different areas. If you don't know what this is, upsell, cross-sell, resell, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help you and provide the right resources for you. Good, this is sales. Now you have a customer. Now you sold your service, now you sold your product. And now the third thing externally is execution. Execution is nothing else. Okay, now you deliver your service, you deliver your product. When you have a product, of course, you ship the product to somebody. If you have a service, then you just execute your service. So execute your service is, for example, you give a keynote on stage, or execute your service is you basically sell a course, or basically they get access to a course. Or execute could also be they become a member, so now they have access to your membership. So whatever your service is, or you have a consulting project you are going to execute. So this is really where you execute whatever the customer bought, so where the customer gets the product or the service. Yeah, wonderful. And then guess what? You are doing it all over again, because you continue to market to the existing customer, you continue to nurture the existing customer, you continue to qualify the existing customer, that the sales has the opportunity to upsell, cross-sell, resell, or downsell the existing customer. because making money with existing customers and selling them more than just one product is so much easier than when you sell something to a completely new customer. Okay, good. So now we covered the external stuff. Now let's talk about the internal stuff, operations. Operations really depends on how big your company is, because if you just have a handful of people, you will not have an HR department. You as the business owner, guess what? You're going to do the HR stuff. You are going to be responsible probably even for the legal stuff. Hopefully you are not doing your bookkeeping, but I know a bunch of business owners who are also doing their finances and especially the bookkeeping when they just have a handful of team members. So when you get bigger, of course, operations, internal stuff gets a little bit more complicated and you have probably more areas operations needs to cover. One area for sure is going to be HR. So how can you find the right talent? How can you attract the right talent? How can you hire the right talent? And how can you retain the right talent? So that's basically HR. But you also have how can you train your people? How can you educate your people? How can you develop your people? Leadership is somebody every person in the departments also needs to have. But who is helping them with the right leadership tools, with the right education, with the right structure? Then you probably have the tech area. So what is your tech stack? What tools, what softwares, what platforms are you using? Are you using, for example, Zoom or MS Teams, or are you using AI tools? What is your CRM system? What is your marketing management system? So this is the tech area. Probably you are selling products in this area. So you are selling a SaaS product, that you will have product development. Of course, we also have something like bookkeeping, accounting, the financing stuff. So all of these are examples that goes into operations. Same again, do not overcomplicate it, because if you have a small team, if you do not have dozens or hundreds or even thousands of employees, make it as simple as possible. Maybe operations is just you as the business owner at the beginning. Hopefully not long, but maybe at the beginning it is just you. And then, of course, over everything, you, the business owner, the CEO, the founder of the company. So you are actually the CEO, the founder, and then you have these three external things, so marketing, sales, and execution. And then you have this one internal thing, which is called operations. Why did I tell you that? Because when you start a business, you are everything. You are marketing, you are operations, you are execution, you are sales, you are everything. And now, what is the goal? Your goal and your responsibility and your duty and your obligation as a business owner is you need to remove yourself from one after the next of these different areas. You need to remove yourself from marketing. You need to remove yourself from sales, from operations, and from execution at some point. Because then you become a business owner. Then you become a CEO. Otherwise, you are just a solopreneur, or you are basically trapping yourself in a job when you are doing all that on your own. And now the question is, how can we remove ourselves from these different areas? And here we need to talk about processes now, about SOPs, standard operating procedures. So what is that and why is this important? In every area, you have things that your team members, in the beginning yourself, need to do over and over and over and over again. Because in marketing or in sales or in execution or in operations, you have recurring tasks that are maybe every single month, every single week, sometimes every single day, the same, over and over and over and over again. And now your role and your responsibility as the business owner to remove yourself out of a role like that is you need to put together an SOP. You need to really nail down a standard in this area to be able to hand it off in the future to somebody or to technology. So how can we do that? The first thing is what you need to do is you need to make a list of recurring processes. Again, don't overcomplicate it. Don't make a huge deal out of it. Just sit down and write down your recurring processes in marketing, in sales, in execution, and in operations. Okay? When you have these lists, now you select your top 3 in every area. You select your top 3 processes in marketing, in sales. Okay, you get it. And now, what are you doing next? Now you start to optimize these processes, and then you build an SOP. So you optimize the process because probably the process changes after a couple of months or after a couple of years, and you don't need to do silly things anymore what was necessary a couple of years ago. Why? Because now you have more technology or AI is around, or you just learned on how to do it better. So that's the first thing. Do not put together an SOP before you did not optimize the process at least a little bit, okay? Because when you have a bullshit process and then you put the bullshit process in an SOP, guess what? Now you have a bullshit SOP. Congratulations. It sucks and it's hard to delegate and you will never get good results from your team members, okay? So first, make sure it doesn't suck. Then you build the SOP, the standard operating procedure. Now, I already hear your thoughts. I already hear what most entrepreneurs say, oh shit, no, oh my God, I don't have time for that. I can't even get all my other to-dos together. I have not time. I have no opportunity to put together SOPs. Here, that excuse doesn't count anymore because now we have technology. What's the easiest way for you to put together an SOP? You are doing this task anyway. So now you just start the screen recording while you are doing the task. Then you record the task. Then you feed this recording into an AI tool and you say, hey AI, this is my SOP, whatever. This is my process. Build an SOP out of it. And guess what? AI is going to spit out a completely done for you SOP document. And even if it's not perfect, a not perfect SOP is better than you invest dozens or hundreds of hours in optimizing, perfectionizing the SOP and it never gets done and you never can hand it over. So this is how you can do the SOP with technology in the meantime. How to do that? I had so many past shows already around AI and around technology. So just go back in our shows from the last couple of weeks and the last couple of months, tune into the AI shows, and there you know exactly on how you can do that. Okay? Good. So now we have an SOP. And how this SOP is built now becomes a question of technology or your organizational structure, your team members, or where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. The first thing is what you can or what you should do when you have this SOP. Can you digitalize this process? Yes or no? If yes, that's what you need to do next. How can you digitalize this process that you don't need to do it manually anymore? How can you put together templates, for example, in sales or in marketing or also in execution? You should have a lot of templates because at the end of the day, guess what? Most things are nearly the same over and over and over and over and over again. Anyway, so when you need to write the email, when you send out a proposal, every single time from scratch. Why? You should have a template for that. You should have an automation for that. You should digitalize certain steps. And then you probably can do this in your marketing management system. You can do this probably in your CRM system. You probably have some SaaS products around where you can digitalize that. Digitalization is the first step of a process, of an SOP. The next step, though, is, okay, how can you automate that? Automate means, again, less human involvement. How can you automate something, again, with technology that you or your team members do not need to do this on a manual basis anymore? So that's basically step number 2. Step number 3 is AI. How can you throw AI onto this process that AI is at least supporting this process, better automating this process, or doing the whole AI automated workflow? That is basically the end goal. Okay, but if you are a starting point, no problem, just throw AI onto it, make the process easier and make the process more efficient. Okay, so now we have a process, then we made the process better, then we built the SOP, now we have the digitalization, then the automation, and now the AI. And the last step here is, if it's still necessary that humans are in the loop of this process, now you delegate this. Now you basically hand over the responsibility for this workflow, you hand over the responsibility for this SOP to a team member. And now the team member is responsible for the result, for the end result of this SOP. Not for, oh, okay, how do I build an SOP? What is an SOP? How do I use AI? No, you set up the structure. You remember, you are the architect, you are the business owner, you set up the structure, and you set up your employees for success. And this is exactly how you can do that. Then, again, if a human being is still necessary, then you basically delegate it to somebody. In these steps, what I just described, you probably need to adapt the SOP. Why? Because if you can throw a lot of technology onto this process, you need to have this also in your SOP. But the good thing is, same again. When you go through the steps I just mapped out, I just laid out, you will not have a hard time to really adapt it because it's self-explanatory. When you suddenly need your CRM system or when you suddenly have an SaaS product where you can do that. Okay? Good. So, a short recap from our today's episode. We talked about our org chart and how you can remove yourself out of the certain roles. The org chart, make it as simple as possible. Don't overcomplicate it. You have 4 different areas. The first 3 are externally, that's marketing, sales, and execution. And then you have operations, that's basically the internal one. When you have that, you as the business owner at the beginning are doing all of that. And your goal is you need to remove yourself out of this. Then you need to build SOPs. And how you build SOPs is you just record yourself while you are doing this task. Anyway, you feed that recording, the screen recording, into an AI tool. The AI tool is going to build an SOP out of it. Then you have the SOP. You digitalize it. You automate it, you throw AI onto it, so you optimize it. And then when it is really, really optimized and still humans are necessary in this task or in this role, then you delegate it, you hand over the whole workflow, the whole SOP from one of your team members. Voila, you are free. You are finally stepped out of this role. And now your job is, you need to step up as a leader, because now you as the leader make sure that your team member is in the full accountability and is going to execute this over and over and over and over again. But this is exactly what we are going to cover in one of the future shows where we are talking about leadership. So for now, I wish you a lot of success. And if you have more questions, I created something very, very special for you. In the show notes, you have the link where you can download your free white paper around freedom entrepreneurship on how you can have both growth and freedom, or how you can regain freedom if you are lacking freedom. So just click the link in the show notes and download your free white paper. And I wish you a lot of success and see you in the next show. Bye for now.